This video is about a Ford Escape hybrid, the common engine RPMs. When driving, it seemed like the engine sounded like it ran at specific RPMs depending on the situation. In this video, you'll see a summary of common engine RPMs and some other observations I made I wasn't really expecting, specifically regarding speedometer accuracy, the battery percentage, and battery voltage. Brief description of the difference between a CVT and an eCVT that's in the Ford Escape. The 4-scan setup I used, the Excel graphs that were produced, battery percentage, battery voltage, engine coolant temperatures, brief sketch of the drive path that I followed, engine RPMs versus speed videos. Common engine RPMs. 1250 RPMs is for the idle, specifically charging and light throttle. Additional common engine RPMs I observed were 1500, 1700, 1750, 1800, and 2000. A very common one is engine off, which in my case, the engine has been off about 40% of the time. When recording the engine RPMs on my little trip, I observed peaks at 3450 and 4673. Of note, this is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder Atkinson cycle engine, 165 horsepower at 6250, 155 pound-feet of torque at 4000 RPMs. I observed a speedometer accuracy about plus or minus 2 kilometers per hour when driving at a steady speed. When accelerating or decelerating, the digital display seemed to show an average that updated about every second or so. I imagine if it updated as the data was coming in from the powertrain control module, it would be an absolute blur and you wouldn't even be able to read what it was. With respect to battery percentage, I've read before that hybrid batteries should not be charged greater than 80% of their capacity, otherwise their lifespan is shortened. I observed the battery percentage between about 40 and 70% charge throughout my little trip. With respect to battery voltage, I had observed a battery voltage of between 197 and 245 volts, depending on the situation, whether it was recharging or not. Another observation I had about the battery was that it always provides motive power, whether going forward or reverse. Note that in reverse, it's battery power only. The engine does not provide any power at all. Here I illustrate my interpretation of the difference between a CVT, a continuously variable transmission, and an eCVT, an electronic continuously variable transmission. CVT, which is used by various auto manufacturers, has a drive belt between two conical-shaped pulley systems, and it also employs a torque converter between the engine and this transaxle. eCVT does not have a drive belt or a torque converter. It's all gears, and the key is a planetary gear set. There's a drive motor that provides the main power, a starter generator which can start the motor and charge the batteries. Planetary gear set is the key to the eCVT. The starter generator is connected to the sun gear. The engine is connected to the planetary gears, and they're surrounded by a ring gear. The sketches of a CVT versus an eCVT are not that great and probably have errors in them, but if you really want to learn about these two transmissions on YouTube, look up Weber Auto, and you can learn a lot about these transmissions, including the Ford Hybrid HF35 transaxle. I used 4-scan to connect to the CAN bus connector. I recorded speed, engine RPMs, engine coolant temperature, battery percentage, and battery voltage in real time as I was driving. The graphs based on the 4-scan data are presented here. Here is engine RPMs versus vehicle speed. Battery percentage recorded during the trip. Note it's between 40 and 70%. Here's the battery percentage versus vehicle speed. Note that the battery percentage always decreased when the throttle was depressed, which means the battery always provides power to assist the engine. Here's the battery voltage I recorded throughout the trip. Note that it was between 197 and 245 volts. When the data is graphed for battery voltage, it's kind of all over the place because the only thing I can think of is the battery voltage spiked during charging. For reference, here's the engine coolant temperature that was recorded during the trip. The engine was running during the first part of the trip because it was cold. It seems once the engine coolant temperature got to about 58 degrees Celsius, battery-only operation was possible. Here's a side view of the drive path I followed. I started out kind of flat and went down a relatively steep hill to a set of traffic lights. Then through the next 2 sets of traffic lights, it was a slight climb, and then a very steep hill, and then down the other side. Now I present the engine RPMs versus speed videos. Playback speed is 3 times the normal speed. This video is on the first part of the trip. Starts out flat and then goes down a steep hill. This video is on the second part of the trip, a slight climb to the next set of lights. This video is on the third part of the trip, a slight climb to the next set of lights. This video is on the fourth part of the trip, where I go up a steep hill. Here I open up the taps, peak engine RPM is 3450. Now I slow down. Now I open up the taps a bit, peak engine RPM was recorded at 4673 RPM. Now I've reached the crest of the hill, and the rest of the trip is with the engine off and battery only power. Well, have a good day and thank you for watching.